like online experiments. So could you tell me a little bit about what your experience has been and like what platforms you've tried?
Do you mean like I've been only used Mechanical Turk.
Mm-hmm.
That's a platform you meant, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only platform that I've been using.
Okay. And like what sort of experiments have you done on using Mechanical Turk?
So for my research purpose, I created my own study interface and then try to recruit participants from Mechanical Turk.
Mm-hmm. And when with your own study interface, like what were the research, like what were the Mechanical Turk participants doing? Like, were they like interacting with it or just like answering questions about it?
Oh yeah, so I mean, I think it's like 70% of my studies more of like ask them to examine visualizations, and then sometimes they recall the value later. So basically, like I think it's all interactive. Yeah, it's all interactive visualization so that they can interact with the visualization. And sometimes I record what their like prior like expectation, or sometimes I ask them to recall the value later on. And then also I've been doing another one. Actually, the 30% of them is I just use it for collecting data. For example, one of my study was asked them to come up with synonyms of scientific words. So I just listed how can you find all the synonym of scientific jargon, and asked them to collect and listed all the synonyms. So that I use that data for my training model purpose.
And why did you choose to use Mechanical Turk?
I mean, like, is this question like, well, why do I have to recruit online, or like, because like that's the only platform that I know. I mean, is your question like instead of recruiting in person, or instead of using other platform other than Mechanical Turk
Like,
in
so,
online?
Yeah, so like it's like other other online platforms. Like there's so many of the different ones, like Crowdflower or like these other like more specific ones.
Oh.
So like what characteristics about Mechanical Turk?
Yeah, actually I didn't aware of other platforms. And then this one is the only one that I am aware of, so that's why I'm using it.
Okay. Yeah. Since using Mechanical Turk, have you considered using the other ones or any other ones?
I mean, like now I know there are other platforms out there, so I might take a look.
Okay.
But I'm pretty satisfied with Mechanical Turk experience, actually.
Okay. What about it is like satisfying to you?
Yeah, I mean, like it's really hard to say because I didn't have any reference to compare. But I think overall, I feel like I achieved my goal mostly. I want to gather data, or I want to ask something. They're pretty good at it. I mean, I didn't have really like ridiculous experience or anything. So in that sense, I think I'm satisfied with that experience, I guess.
Yeah. So, thinking about the participants in your experiments, like what do you know about them?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So I think I'm usually collect their ethnicity and age, like education background, but before recruiting them, I only know about their like approval rate because I'm filtering participants by approval rate, and they mostly from U.S. I mean, that's the self-identification or something. Like I only recruit participants in U.S. So that's the only information that I know. But later on, like I usually collect all the demographic information, so I can, I know their pretty basic demographic information.
So why do you choose to only have U.S. workers, and what is the approval rating that you have?
Yeah, I usually use 95%
Mm-hmm.
criteria, but sometimes it's for the scientific jargon project. I recruited from Master Turker pool. I think that's 97 or 8. I don't know. At 99, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I just specify as a master worker. And then the reason for the U.S. worker is like for that jargon project, obviously it's English native, like sort of thing. So I needed someone who, well, actually the Indian people can speak English too. I'm not sure. I have just perceived notion that, or like I know one research said the U.S. worker tend to have better performance. I vaguely know about the paper, but if there is a task, I mean, they're comparing the task performance or something, and then it turns out that the U.S. worker has better performance. I mean, for quality control purpose, I prefer U.S. And also, another visualization project that I've worked on was about like U.S. political. I mean, underlying the data set of the visualization was U.S. Specific topic, like U.S. politics. So I try to control the people's perception of this topic by specifying only U.S. worker.
Okay. And so, like, for the approval rating for being like 95 or like master Turkers, was that also for data quality or something else?
Yeah. Yes, it's for data quality.
Okay. And do you get any feedback from your participants about their experience with the task that they've done?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, what kind of feedback do you get, and how do you get it?
So I think, I tend to put it's in the very last page, very last question, as like, would you recommend us to do anything to improve this hit? Mm-hmm. Then they sometimes, but its question is kind of vague. So sometimes people like recommend us to like fix some bug or like fix some UX issue. And sometimes they say something about our research too. Like, yeah, it's really random, but we try to be open-ended so that we can get all sort of any feedback that they might raise during the task. So it's a pretty open-ended question, like, do you have any recommendation to improve this hit? But I think it's pretty, so far, I think that works okay.
Mm-hmm. So like you said that they talk about bugs and or about your research. What about your research do they talk to you or do they give feedback on?
Yeah, sometime, well, let me think about it. Actually, so one time, yeah, it's about, like, it's a little bit about research, but a little bit about, like, our bug as well. But they said we were basically testing recall ability of them, but then I didn't implement to prevent workers from clicking back button, which means that workers can go back and see and they recall the data value exactly what they saw. But at the beginning, we didn't reveal that they were going to recall the value. So it's kind of, so they said, oh, it's not, if you want to do the research right, you should have implemented like no back button function or something. That's one comment that I got. And also, sometimes they give the for synonym like jargon project. Somebody said like you should be more specific to if you want to get quality answers or something. Like you should make your question more clear to get better answered or something. And sometimes they suggest that thing too.
So it was more. So has anyone ever talked to you like about sort of? So it sounds like that was sort of like how maybe like your experiment design or like a technical feature about your experiment.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, yeah.
Okay. What do you tell the participants about your research in advance, or maybe at the end?
So, are you asking like, do I introduce a bit of our research at the beginning and the last or something?
Or yeah, like do you kind of like tell them like this task is for like this particular research project or anything like that?
Yeah, so we label. I mean, I have one template that I'm keep using it. It says like, this is our research project. Your answer will be greatly appreciated because they're helping our research. But it's not like in detail, but just mention that it is a research project, but not about like really detail or anything.
Yeah, and when do you give that information to your participants?
At the very first page.
Okay.
When we recruit, before they accept the hit.
Okay, so is it like part of the informed consent, or not?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's actually before the informed consent. Actually, the before, like, it's a very intro page. Like, I think the page that they see the very first. I mean, before seeing this consent meeting.
Okay.
Do you understand? Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah.
Oh, I see. If I were to, because like I've taken some tasks before, so like if I were to go look for the hit and like it would show me like a preview,
exactly, yeah.
That page, like that would be what.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Have you considered like giving your participants like some sort of compensation besides the money that they get on Mechanical Turk?
You mean other than bonus and reward?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. Is it allowed? I don't know.
Well, I guess like I'm just thinking like since you tell them a little bit about your research, maybe like I was thinking like one form of compensation could be like additional information or like some follow up about like this is what your data contributed to, like this paper we published or something like that.
No, I haven't.
Why? Or why? Like, why? I guess why not?
Yeah, I mean, like I think it's. I felt like by sending them. I mean, after finishing all the hits, I feel like if I contact them, it feels a little weird because it's supposed to be like double blind. It's not supposed to be double blind, but I feel it's sort of weird that contact people who were supposed to be anonymized or something. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. I mean, for me, obviously they sometimes send me email like asking about stuff, but so we know each other. I mean, they know my email and I know their email. Do I know their email? I don't know. So I feel like it's kind of in a send box, in a very like black box. We're meeting each other very like secretly, and then sort of I got that impression actually. So I haven't tried to contact them in person or like try to contact them after everything's done.
Yeah. So like, so when they try to contact you and like if they ask you, have they tried asking you to like say like, oh, like let me know when your research project is done or something?
No, I think they're pretty much like asking about the interface or like about the bugs or about the rewards. I mean, I think our relationship has been so dry.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm also curious, like, when and like how do you decide that you want to use an online experiment?
I mean, like, well, yeah, that's a really good question. Other than like interviewing, I'm always using it. I mean, small usability test. Also, I tend to use Mechanical Turk more often than in-person usability testing because it's, I don't know, I don't need to talk to a real person, and it's easier. And then I feel like it's easier to recruit like lots of people without soliciting anybody real world. I don't know.
Yeah. So like for like usability testing, like before you like launch maybe your final version, you'll like use Mechanical Turk.
I mean, I haven't done it before, but I thought of launched one to get some opinion on it, but we didn't do anything online. We decided not to do it online or nor in person, but we thought about it once. And then I think through my, well, except the DIP like interview session, I tend to use all mechanical Turk study, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And like what is your process like? So do you typically try to do like interviews first and then like test in your lab, or like kind of, can you like walk me through like when you like what that looks like for you to develop an online experiment?
Sure. So I think it's now it's pretty templated already because I've been using the same template for over and over. So it's been really simple that I copy and paste my whole folder and then like modify the contents and then try a few times with me and my advisor or like around me or collaborators, see if anything really wrong. And then I launched to Sandbox and then I tried and then launched really small number, like launched in the production for like 3 or 4 people, and then see if everything is recording and any bugs, like try to figure out any bugs there, and like launch it to big populations. Are you asking like the creating the interface part as well, or just launching part?
The creating the interface part as well.
Yeah, okay. So like, it depends on project, but because I think I usually use this mechanical Turk for my evaluative study, so it's not like formative thing. Evaluative studies.
Oh, okay. And not your...
So, what?
You said your evaluative studies and not your...
Not my formative study.
Oh, okay.
Just like, my research has been more focused on evaluation, not like, I haven't done anything like doing some formative work by asking people. So it's mostly evaluative. So which means I need to do a lot of fine tune to get right answer. Because like in a formative study, you can just ask a bunch of questions or open-ended question and see if what they say. But it's evaluative. It's more like we have our specific metric. And then it sounds like fishing, but we're like try to remove some noise around the interface so that we can get the response that really targeted to our metric. So sometimes I did a lot of pilots sometimes, but we didn't actually use the data, but launched a pilot, like first pilot, and then get some feedback and also the values, also the response. And if there's nothing interesting, then we have to think about like what's wrong, or is there anything the interface caused that no difference between group. So, and then try to figure out like what is the right wording, or what is main reason that we didn't see any difference. And then fine tune the interface as well, and then launch it again. If we didn't see, then fine tune again and launch it again. I mean, I've been doing that for like 5 or 6 times for our last project, and we slightly changed the wording. Has really huge impact on our response. So try to make it clear that try to control everything other than the factor that we want to moderate. So that's important part while developing interfaces.
Yeah. Where do you feel like you spend the most amount of time?
During whole process, you mean? Yeah, so like the fine tuning of fine tunes interface part is kind of take longer. I think it's less about technicality, but about like, are we really asking the right question, or like, is there any noise that we can't think of? But some noise is always there. So how can we control those noise? I mean, thinking about that part takes longer than any other parts.
I see. So like, not even just like developing the interface the first time, but like once you've done it, Okay.
Right. It's developing is like where I'm almost like a research coding. I don't care about the quality of the coding or anything. We're just like whatever I can see something like that's it, right? But then the thinking about wording and thinking about like process, the step that participants should go through. Is that right way to do it, or is it really clear so that we can get some really clear response from them? I think that part takes longer, I guess.
Okay, cool. Okay, I think I understand. I'm just looking through the questions I wanted to make sure I asked you.
Sure.
If I forgot any. Oh, okay. So I have a couple of questions. It's like one is sort of like I feel like a lot of your work was really interesting to the to the public because like there's so many like real world examples that you sometimes like cite in your papers. And so I guess I'm curious to know like do you think I mean like despite that you might not think this but like do you think that there like what sort of like pieces of your research do you think like participants would be most interested in or like would be interesting for them to know just like not even as participants but just as like people?
Well, I mean like my research project is really all over actually, so like it's I mean it's hard to generalizable to say something like this piece will be well interesting, but sometimes like, I feel like that the visualization project that I've done, it was like asking them to draw their expectation first and then later on they can see their response with the actual data. I think that part, people actually leave comments like, "Oh, this is brilliant idea," but they have some suggestion on it. Actually, yeah, they said, "Can I use it with my own data? Are you going to launch some demo, or are you going to launch whatever?" Like they sometimes ask that too while interacting with that interface. So I think that part, that project, people might be interested in that. And also they were interested in, like some of them are interested in like try to plug in their own data and then wanted to use them. Is that the right answer? I mean, like it's hard.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like yeah, because I think like visualizations are things that have become like, especially interactive visualizations have become more popular. And so I was just curious what you thought would be interesting for people to know about.
Yeah.
And sort of going back to what we talked about with like getting data from participants, like how do you feel like your data could be better than it is right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been thinking of that a lot, but sort of like if I could make them more engaged with this project, I believe that the response will be much better. So for example, for visualization as well, if all people like so engaged with the interface, then well that may change the result anyway. Anyway, for the jargon collecting experience, some of them are really like very much enthusiastic on collecting that, and then they said they're learning from it. They didn't know certain word, but they got to know about it by doing this hit. I mean, some sort of those like engagement thing. I don't know how can we have one for them, but I think engagement can be a really big thing for them, I guess.
So when you talk about engagement, are you talking about like their like how long they do it, or like how invested they are in the task, or if they're like having fun, or like a combination of like what do you think about when you think about engagement?
Yeah, I think that jargon project, I think I got mostly, it was about learning experience. They said they learned a lot by doing that task. So in that sense, it can be like, I think this hit process, doing that heat gives you some sort of like satisfying learning experience, I guess. That's the one thing. And also in visualization project, they were excited about the data actually, because its data wasn't like really publicly available. So some people were curious to know where the data comes from, because it was about like Colorado data set, but they wanted to know some other state they were come from. Mm-hmm. So it can be some curiosity thing, or like they were, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's all about like curiosity, like learn something from it. Maybe that's my guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that's maybe all the those are all the questions that I have